In this episode, we're going to do some squealing. So let's get inside. Howdy train fans, welcome back to the Chattanooga Southern Railroad. So, got a little project here I'm going to work on, actually a couple projects because it's multiple places I'm going to be doing this, but I'm going to be installing some of these squealers from Iowa Scale Engineering in a couple places on my layout. So I have one of these that has a single sensor, and then I also have one that I bought a secondary sensor for. So there'll be 3 squealers involved here, 2 source units. So let's get down and look at what we're going to be doing. All right, here's the shot of the stuff that I plan on using for the installation of these squealers. So as I mentioned before, this packet here has not only the primary one, but it also has a secondary one. I'll show you that in a second. This is just a single sensor squealer, but I've also got a couple other things here. One is I have this liquid electrical tape that I'm going to use on the devices themselves, and I'll show you that. This is based off of a recommendation from Paul B. at the New England Industrial District Railroad. Go check out his channel. He's got a great layout that he's been building, and he does some really nice how-tos on there. In addition to that, he also recommends that you install a brass tube, and I'll go over a little more detail what this is in your layout. It makes it easier for pulling these in and out when you need to. And then of course I got a red Sharpie here that I'm going to use to mark the locations, and I'll show you where I've put those as of right now, but we've also got to find the location for the actual speakers in each of these. So let me get you a little bit further down here. All right, why don't we dive in and take a look at one of these. So when you buy one of these from Iowa Scale Engineering, they're about $79. And these, when you open them up, you get an instruction packet here. Nice little graphic there. And it shows you how to wire it up. It also shows you what you're supposed to install as far as drilling the hole, drilling a pilot hole first, then drilling a 3/8 inch diameter hole, and then setting the sensor, which is this part right here. I'll show that to you here in a second. And installing that in the hole, and then finding a way to mount it there. Well, as I mentioned, Paul B., what he does is he takes, instead of drilling a 3/8 inch diameter hole, he drills a 5/16 inch hole, which is 1/16 smaller than that. And then he uses a 5/16 brass tube like this, hollow like that, to put up into the layout, because this is 15/16 outside diameter, so it should fit nice and snugly up in there. And then that allows the sensor to fit exactly up in there, and it's a snug enough fit, he says, that it makes it really easy to install and pull back out again when you need to. So if we set aside our well, also with this is the actual main control board, and then the speaker itself. It does note very specifically here that the sensor is direction oriented, so you don't want to set it so your track is running this way. You want to set it so the track is running across the wide part of that sensor pad. So let's look at the actual device here. All right, so let's dig this out of the packet the rest of the way. So it comes nicely mounted in the box and nicely packaged here. And as you can see, it's got these little standoffs, but this is the actual circuit board itself. Places for screw holes, which I'm going to definitely use, and I've got some nylon standoffs because you do have some prongs here, right? I don't know exactly where I'm going to set this up underneath the layout, but we'll figure that out when I get under there. There is a place to bring in your power, and of course the sensors connect here. That's all covered in the wiring diagram in that sheet that I showed you earlier. The other part of this is, of course, let me do this first. This is the sensor itself. It is quite small. It has 4 wires, a black, a white, a blue, and a red that comes out of it. And I'll just show this to you real quick. So this is the tube that Paul B recommends, and you'll see that this thing, it's a little snug. Actually, let me put it on this thing because I think that is a little damaged. But it nicely slides up in there, and it's a friction fit, which is great. So hats off to Paul B for figuring this out and letting people know. And I'm using it, as you can see, and going to share that with everybody as well. So we have that. And then, of course, we've got the speaker, which is basically just a 3D printed box. As you can see the little lines on it. And it's got 4 wires as well, only this is got, instead of the white wire, we got a yellow wire along with the black, red, and blue that connect up to this thing. But the most important thing to understand here is that this is the sound port for it. So the way they recommend that you install this is just like I'm holding it here, and you drill a hole down through your layout so that sound can radiate up. So we'll have to find a place of where we're going to put this and then drill that hole as well as the one in the track. So let's get looking at the spots that I'm going to install these. Okay, so spot number 1 in which I'm going to install the single sensor version is right here in this curve. This is my westbound main coming out of North Junction over here, heading into South Chattanooga Junction over here. This is the main line heading towards South Chattanooga. That's my freight house over there. This is going to be my cement plant here. So I decided that this being a nice tighter curve, that's just is screaming, haha, pun intended, for a squealer. So as you can see, I've already marked here. I'll move you a little forward and put an S here with an arrow. And you can see I've already drilled the pilot hole, which is a 1/8 inch bit down through there. Okay, this will be my single installation. My double installation is going to end up being over here. This is my main line heading towards Sugar Alley. This is my team track. This is the pulpwood area. This is actually South Chattanooga here. That's the lumber yard that I just finished installing. So I'm going to put the double here. There's a location for a sensor here in this curve because this is a nice tight curve. And I'm also going to put one right there just off the roadway for the lumber yard curve, because that's a pretty decent curve, and you would expect to hear some grinding and squealing over there. So we'll have to find a location for the sound unit hole over here, as well as over here. So as I've done some thinking about where I've chosen to locate this Squealer sensor unit, and where do I want to put the speaker itself underneath the layout? And I've been pondering where to do that. And so from my perspective, where I'm standing right now is a place that an operator would be standing, okay? And I think the best place for that speaker is between the operator, which is you and I right now, and where that sensor is. So I think I'm going to drill a hole somewhere in here. And this is going to be an area that is going to have probably some trees and overgrowth in this little section right in here, as is over in here. So I think this is a good place to try to hide that, but it also allows the sound to carry towards me as the operator, based off of what I'm seeing over here. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. So my second location with the 2 sensors, here's the one, and I've already drilled that 1/8 inch pilot hole there. I haven't done the one back there, but you can see the mark for the S there. Where do I put the speaker? Because unlike over here, where I'm going to put the speaker between me and the sensor, I don't necessarily want the sensor sound to come out of here when something's happening all the way over there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that sensor like halfway in between here. So either like right in here or right in here. Again, there's going to be some overgrowth in this area, not so necessarily much here, but this is going to be a team track and have a loading station or a loading dock here. So there might be a good place to pile up some debris to kind of hide the hole that I'm going to put in here, because that's going to be a pretty decent size hole. It's going to be at least a 3/8 inch diameter hole, I believe, to make that sound carry up through there. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to either put it like right here or right here, and then again back over here I'm going to put this one here. All right, so after some final looking around and deciding based off of what I just shared with you, I've decided to drill the hole for the speaker here for this one, and I've decided to drill the speaker hole there for that would sound off for this squealer or that squealer sensor there. So let's what I got to do now is I got to drill the pilot hole over there for that one, and then I'm going to have to do the daring of drilling the 5/16 hole up through, and hopefully I don't blow through my track. So let's get working on that. All right, so I've got my 1/8 inch bit in my drill. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to put that right dead center. You need to be centered between the rails for this. So I'm going to go right there. I'm going to start my drill slow and then drive it on home. Just like that, making sure I got a nice clear pilot hole. Just like that. And I thought I had my vacuum around here somewhere, but apparently it's all the way over at the other side. So we'll clean that up, and then we'll start drilling from underneath. I'll actually show you one of those. All right, so I got you back over here at the layout, and if you remember, we already drilled the pilot holes, 1/8 inch bit there, and then one over there. And so I need to get underneath the layout and drill up through. So, but I need to be able to know where those holes are. So I'm going to take my bamboo skewers and set them down through there like that, and then one like this, and these are also double as my uncoupling sticks. Get you in the right frame there, and down like that. And then as you'll see when we go into the layout, we'll be able to spot those and pull those on down through and then drill back up through. I'm going to be using a set of brad point bits. This is my 15/16 here, so I'm going to be grabbing that one, and then we'll go from there. All right, so one of the biggest challenges you have in installing these is making that hole up from the bottom and not damaging your track. And the risk is that you go too far, you blow through your roadbed and your ties and possibly your rail, and you look like you're doing the next Tremors movie model with a graboid has popped up through the ground. So I'm going to be using this brad point bit. You have to have a really good idea of the dimensions of your sub base here. I'm using 1/2 inch plywood with 1/2 inch homosote, and then underneath of this track here and over and one position over there, I've got a 1/8 inch basswood road bed underneath this. So I need to somehow do a depth gauge on this to 1.5 inches. Now you could do that with a collar. I don't like to do that on my really good brad point bits like that, because it does damage the threads or the cutting edge on these. So I'm going to use tape on this. And so what I'll do is I got out my metal ruler here, and I'm going to use, there it is, stuck to my hand, a piece of tape. And so I'm going to lay this out. And now I'm not going to the point, I'm going to the cutting edge there. So I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but I'm going to take that to 1 1/8. I'm going to line the edge of the tape up with the end of that ruler, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk that tape around and create basically a tape collar, just like that. Okay. Now when I drill up through, I'm going to go right to that line, right to that point, and hopefully it won't have blown through my track. So let's get underneath the layout. All right, so I'm under the layout here, and this is the first place I'm going to drill this hole. And this is out on the westbound main. This is the place that's going to get the single sensor location. So as you can see right here, I got a lot of wiring here with my main track bus here and feeders. But this stick right here is where the hole is. So now that I know where that is, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. I've got my drill bit with my tape on it, ready to go. I have to be careful here. I'm going to go ahead and center that. And hopefully that's coming through. Now I went right to my tape, so now I'm going to go up to the top and double check, see how we're doing. All right, so here I am back up on top of the layout, and as you can see, that tape marking worked perfectly. Did a little bit of buggering. This tie here bowed up a little bit, but that was because it was pushing the basswood up. Other than that, I have a nice clear hole down through there, and so now I'm going to go under and install the brass tube. All right, so I'm back here over at the workbench, and if you remember, I'm taking Paul B's advice and using this brass metal rod, which is 5/16 outside diameter, to use as a casing and a holder for these sensors that for the squealers. These are still drying, they're still tacky, I'm not going to touch them. But what I've decided to do, my bench work is basically about 1 inch to 1 1/8 inches thick, depending on whether I have road bed or not. And so what I've decided to do is I'm going to cut a length 1.5 inches. You can kind of see it by the 1/2 inch grid here off the end of this to make one of my holders that's going to go into the bench work. I need to cut 2 more of these, but I just want to show you how I do that. So having a nice mat grid, or a mat with a grid like this, makes it kind of easy. But I'm using a fine tooth X-Acto blade. This is actually a X-Acto saw. This is actually a 235 number. So I'm going to line it up on one side. There's a 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5. I'm gonna start working my way through it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it a little bit. Until I can get it through. And this will take a few minutes. Now I've got it lined up, I can get it in a more comfortable space. Let's see, I'm going to roll it a little bit now that I've started through it. Once you get through it, it really starts to go a little bit faster. Sometimes you just have to use the pull action to go faster. Like that. Roll it a little bit. That noise sounds like a really angry duck. Go. Now, I will tell you that is a very sharp edge, so you want to get yourself a metal file. This one has both a coarse and a fine, and what I like to do is I just kind of go in here and just kind of spin it a little bit, gets the burr off the inside, and then I'm going to take it, and you can do it one of two ways. You can set this down, kind of do this to get it started, right? Get the main burr off of it, and then you want to just kind of, because if you don't do this and you touch that, it will cut you like right now, as my dad used to say. I'm just kind of rolling it around as I give it a little bit of a softening, taking that burr off. And gently take my finger around it. If I feel anything that's a little bit burry, like right there, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a little bit of a burr right there. Go a little flatter, see if I can get that. And there we go. And now I've got two of those. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a third and final one off of this tube, and I still got plenty left for the other squealers that I plan to install. But again, just a metal file along with your tube and a X-Acto 235 saw. All right, so I'm back under the layout. I've got my brass tube here. I know where my hole is. I'm just going to clean up a little bit of the debris around it. And this does in fact fit quite nicely in there. I'm going to use a little tack hammer. I can find a good orientation in which to use it. I may just push it. See if I can push it up in there. Well, doesn't seem to be want to go quite that easily in there, so it might need a little bit of cleaning out. There we go. Try again. This should be a snug fit, but it should go right up in there in theory. Just all those wires in place. Man, that is an awkward direction. Gotta get your hammer on. I'm gonna check it up top here, and then we'll be right back. All right, so I've got that brass tube set in place, and it's now flush with the basswood strip that's underneath here, and you can see the light from the flashlight coming up through. So this one's done. I'm gonna go do these other two over here, and then we'll be back. All right, so I got this one installed here with the brass casing. And then when I drilled the pilot hole for that, I don't know whether you can see that, but that stick is leaning just a little bit, and I didn't go underneath to double check it, but let me show you what went wrong there. Anyway, so as you can see from underneath, where I drilled that pilot hole is literally caught the edge of the cross member there. So that is not going to work. So I need to move that sensor location a little bit. I'm not quite sure exactly where, but I'll show you when I figure that out. All right, so after a little looking around and measuring, this stick was the original position, and I moved it another inch down the track to right there. And let me show you underneath where that came out to as far as clearance. So as you can see here, that's a much better position. It gives me a little bit of room against the cross member there. I'm looking right there to be able to put that sensor in. And the nice thing is I can mount my sensor device, the actual circuit board there on that cross member. So I'm going to keep going. Alrighty then. Okay, now that I've got my holes drilled for the sensor locations and the brass tubing installed in those, you can see one of them right there. I need to figure out two things. How am I going to mount this? And then also, how am I going to mount the speaker? If you remember, the speaker has this sound port here that has to be up against the layout. This would be the surface of the layout, my fingers, right? So there has to be a hole for that. And I had decided I was going to drill a nice big hole there to allow this, but I need to be able to mount this to the underside. But there is not really anything easy to do this. There's the port for the cable. It just plugs in there and then plugs in right there. So that's nice and easy. I think what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to use some of this Velcro sticky back fastener. This will make it easy to get it on and off. But the problem is, here's a piece of it, and this is both the both halves of it. I need to put one of these on this and then one of these underneath the layout. I think I'm going to put this underneath the layout and this on top. But as you can see, if I put that on there, it's going to cover up that sound port. So what I really need to do is cut a little bit of a relief, almost kind of like make this into like a horseshoe shape, both this one and this one, in order to do that. So let me go grab some scissors and we'll get started. All right, so after buggering one of these already, I've decided the easiest way to do this is just to fold this over and connect them up so that they're even with one another, like this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with an X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to cut through both of these at the exact same time. This is a nice sharp blade, right? And then I think if I can, hopefully this will go through. We'll find out, won't we? Come at it from the other way just to make sure. Let's see if I actually achieved what I was trying to achieve. Nope. Almost got it. Let's try to go back through that again. This little corner up here is the stubborn part, looks like. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah, there it is. I see it. Yeah, just flip it over again. That might make it a little easier. All right. And there we go. Now I've got my horseshoe shape. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these back apart just so I can see which. So I said I wanted to do the looped end on the layout and this side on the actual speaker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt on camera, and I mean attempt, to pull this backing off, which is not easy, right? So the loop side is that side, the first side I pulled off, and there's the second side. So I want this side on my speaker, so I'm going to do something like that. And by the way, these are I'll put a link up to what I used here. And so now I'm going to be able to stick that right up underneath here once I drill that hole, but I need to do that first. So looking at that hole, I think I can use the exact same 5/16 bit that I did here for that. So that would make it easy because it's already loaded in my drill. So I'm going to run and go get that. Okay, I'm back. I've got my 5/16 bit, same one that I made that hole with, to do here for my sound hole. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Use that brad point to center it in my spot, and I'm going to drill down here. Okay. By the way, if you don't have one of these little vacuums like this, get one. They're fantastic for the layout. All right, so I've got my little hole here. I'm going to use my pliers and just kind of put them down in there and like clean that hole up a little bit. Makes that nice and neat like that. And so that should work really, really well. So, but what I need to do now is I need to figure out what size standoffs to use, because if you remember from before, I want to make sure that this sits proud of the cross member down underneath the layout so that these don't bite into the wood. So I've got 2 kits here. You've seen these before if you've watched previous videos. Let me see if I can get them open. That would be helpful. These have different size standoffs, and then of course screws, wood screws that go with it. So what I want to pick the screw first. I want something that is going to fit through there. And let's go with, if I can get my finger wrapped around one, that will fit through that hole nicely. So that is a M3 by 16. And just so you can see how long that is, that's pretty long. And then I'm going to try to find a standoff. That looks like it might be a little, let me get it down here. That might be a little too long. Let's go a little shorter there. Maybe that. That's not going to give me enough bite. I have to go down to something like this. Let me hold that screw flush. That should give me enough meat. That's about 3/8 of an inch into the lumber. So I think I'm going to go with that. So these are the 3 by 6 by 7 inch or 7 millimeter pieces. So what I need now is I need to get out 3 more of those. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I need 3 more of those screws like that. But I've also got a second one of these that I'm going to mount over here. So I'm going to do that again while I'm here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's those, and then I'm going to get out 4 more of those. 3, and there's number 4. All right, so now knock some cars off the track back there. I don't need either of these. And now I have everything I need to mount this underneath the layout, along with this one for this sensor. All right, so I'm back under the layout here under the single sensor source. So here's my brass tube where the sensor is going to go. This is the sound hole for the speaker. I think I'm going to mount the device or the circuit board like right here, because it's easy for me to drill in and get that, and it's up out of the way to keep things from hitting it. Actually, it's going to go in this orientation. I better get that right. The nice thing about this is that these cables are, this cable in particular is about 20 inches long. Okay, so you can put the speaker further away than right near that. The other thing too is the sensor wires that go from the sensor itself to the circuit board are 24 inches in length. So keep that in mind as you're laying these things out. So first things first, I want to get this speaker mounted. I already have the adhesive off of there. This is the plug port that's going to go over to here, so I want to keep that in that right orientation. So I'm going to put this just like that and give it a really good push. And it doesn't have a lot of weight to it, so I think that's going to work really, really well. So we got that done. So the other thing I need to do is I need to figure out exactly where this is going to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to position it where I think it should go. I'm going to use a screw to give myself, I can put my finger on it and keep it in place, use it as kind of a marking tool. where all these holes are going to go. And I don't know if you can see them, but I've got little indentations there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the screws, and I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill these like this. And I will tell you that screw will get hot. So you might want to switch to another screw after about 2 of those, because I couldn't touch that one. I'm going to do this one. If I can find my dot, which is right there. And there we go. Now that I've got those done, I can take my circuit board. I'm going to put it in this orientation here. So I'm going to put a screw through. I'm going to put a spacer on the back side so you can see that. That's what it looks like. I'm going to start it in that hole. And again, I'm not trying to get it all the way seated yet. I'm going to do this one next, the upper left one. Next, start the screw through, put the spacer on. And kind of start that one in so it bites. Again, I want to have some play so I can get these other screws in. I'm going to leave that one I last did. Put this one in. See if I can get the spacer. And you really want to think about where you're putting this. If you're in a confined space, this is not going to be a fun job by any stretch of the imagination. And then this one. Oh, see if I can get it in there. No. Where did it go? This is why you bring extras down with you, because otherwise they go racing off. All right, I'll be back in a second. All right, Daddy got smart. He got a new one, and he got his pliers. That'll make it easier to line these up and find that hole. I'm just going to hold it in place till I get this thing started a little bit. Now, I am going to snug these in very gently, just until I know it's seated. And you you know, you can feel it when it seats, because you do not want to crack that board. All right, good. Now then, again, this is not a super short cord, but what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and plug it in, and it does have an orientation to it, I believe. Let me pull that down again, make sure I've got this in the right orientation, because that matters. All right, there we go. We're gonna put our speaker back where it was, just like that. And then this one is gonna go over here and plug in just like that. Okay, now what I need to do, my sensor is still drying. That stuff is still tacky, so I have to wait until that dries before I put that one in. But what I do need to do is I do need to get some power cables from my LCC bus over here to this and bring those in. So let me go do that. All right, forgot to turn the camera on, but what I did is I ran 2 of these power wires, so white and blue, that's what I'm using for my LCC bus system, and mounted 2 spade connectors to this end. I'm using these suitcase style clamps, but the nice thing about these is once you close them, they accept a spade bit like that. So let me go ahead and see if I can't get these things mounted. If I can find the right pair of pliers, I'll be in good shape. Actually, I'm using channel locks to close these down. So I'm going to put one of these on the blue, like this. There we go. And I'm going to put one on the white, right next door. And just like that, make sure you're putting white to white. Plugs in. And the reason I like these style as opposed to the typical suitcase connectors is that if you're doing any kind of technical short circuiting, trying to figure out, it's really easy to see if you've got a problem, and you can pull these apart, and it's really good for the diagnosing aspect of this. There we go. So now we got both of those. So I'm gonna pull these a little taut like that, and then I'm gonna move you back over here to the circuit board. All right, here's our circuit board. Here's our two power wires coming in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. I'm not putting too much attention on that. And then maybe I'll just go to like maybe right there. And then what I will do is take my snippers and I'm going to go ahead and strip these. The nice thing about the circuit board here is it can handle a much higher gauge wire. I'm using stranded here for this. Unlike my track feeder circuits, which are solid, it makes it easier to solder those. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to double these over. I cut them a little long. If I can keep them from fighting with one another, it'd be good. And then fold this one over, double it up. Like so. I don't know how well you can see that. Yeah, put your hand in front of it, that might help. Like that. So now what I'm going to do is, to me, the white, I'm trying to remember whether the white's power or what. You know what? I better go check that. All right, so I'm glad I checked that because white is ground. One thing you're going to need is a screw, kind of a small tipped screwdriver to work these. So we're going to put the power one in first. We can find that hole. Let's see, where is that? Oh, there we go. Get it in there. Make that puppy down. Like so. Whoops. Just let that lay there. Do the same thing with this one. Make sure I got a, oh yeah, the bolster's up. I got it in there. I'm gonna crank that down, just like that. I can find the slot. There we go. So I'm just gonna lay those up there just like that. All right, so now we've got power over to the circuit board and we've got the speaker connected. So the only other thing we have to do is connect the sensor, and we'll pick one of these terminals to do that. Each of these boards can handle, I think, 2 or 3 sensors. Yeah, it looks like 3 total here. So we'll go do that next. Okay, so I've got you over here at the workbench, and what I'm doing is I'm basically taking these sensors that are going to be up into the layout near all the moisture from scenicking and stuff, and I'm applying this liquid electrical tape to them, and this was the tip by Paul B. That I am doing. And so you can see here that I've already done one. I've got another one here prepped, and I've put some tape up here around the sensor, and I'm holding it down here at the connection point. I have removed the cables from it. It's just a simple little plug. I think that's called a DuPont plug, but don't quote me on that, or a J plug. I forget what it's called. But you definitely are going to want a drip pad here. Paper towel's fine, as you can see here. Actually, it fell out. That one over there fell out. And you definitely want to have something hands-free like this to hold this while you're doing this, because using this stuff is messy. You're going to want some painter's tape. I've cut these into some small strips to be able to wrap that in. You can see the old one there that came from the one up over there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overhead shot, and I'm going to do this one for you so you can see what that looks like. All right, so I've got you overhead now, so that you can see this, and you can see the piece of green tape I've got around the sensor head on this end, and I'm holding it by the electrical plug down here on this end. I will warn you, this stuff, and I'll put a link or a picture of it so you can see what I bought. This came from Amazon. This is messy. So let me show you how messy it is. And you definitely want to scrape. It's got a monster brush. If you can find some that's got a smaller brush, I would recommend it. But as you can see, this is sticky, nasty, messy. So, and it flows. So be mindful of that as well. So I'm just going to start kind of globbing this on like this. And this takes a little bit of finesse. You don't want to be in a hurry doing this. You will get it on other things as you're doing this, right? It will get on, and whatever you get it on, you want to wipe it up very, very quickly. Okay, now I'm going to take this real quick. I want to set that back down in there. Here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set it like that. Then I'm going to undo this. I'm going to spin this puppy around so I can get to the other side. Like that. Now and just like Paul B, I'm kind of leaving that label uncovered so I know what this is. And you want to put as thin a coat as you can on this, because it does want to flow and it does want to drip. So there we go. So I'll flip it back. See, make sure I got everything down in there. Maybe. I seem to be getting everything but what I want to get. Let's see if we can do it this way. There we go. Takes a little bit of work. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put that back down in there. I'm going to make sure that this is tight. And what I want to do right now is, while I've got this, I want to go ahead and take this tape off of here, if I can. Actually, I'm going to take this off. See, I got it all over that plug. I don't want that. There. Now I've got that off of there. Now, so I can get my fingers on it without getting goop all over myself. That's actually the hardest part of all this. I want to go ahead and clean this up while I can, because once it hardens, it's not easy to get off. You need a solvent to do it. If you're lucky, you can still get it off that way. All right, so I've done that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this. The nice thing about a hands-free device is you can take the Oop. Well, how you like that? Got it all over the place in a matter of seconds. All right, there we go. And I'm going to swing it over here like this. Maybe swing it under here like this. Tighten it down. Put it over my drip pad. And then I'm going to get to wiping this stuff off because, like I said, it is, you want to get it like now. And you can see it leaves a little bit of black behind the longer you leave it there. So anyway, that's another one down. Got one more to do. All right, so I have finished up all three. This was the first one. This is the one I showed you in the video. I just finished this one, and I did a much sloppier job on this one. It's dripping, as you can see here, like crazy. But we're gonna let those dry. All right, so time for the final installation of the actual sensor. So you'll see that I've gotten this now hooked back into its cable. It's just a little plug that goes in here. And let me tell you, this took a little while for this to dry, even though I left it. I think it's almost been down here for 2 days in the cold basement. And it took that long for this stuff to solidify and harden. I mean, it's still a little tacky now. But one of the most important things that you have to know about when you install these inside of the track tube there is you have to have the orientation right. And so if you look at this, you'll see that that rectangular pad, you want to be going across the long axis here. So if you look at our device, you'll see that I've got that oriented the wrong way. So what I want it to be is like this. See if that reflective will pick up there, which matches what's showing here. Okay, now you'll know you're in the right orientation is because this board is running parallel with your rails. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the layout here and pop this up through, and then we'll go come up and double check that. And then once we've got that, know that the orientation is right, we'll go back down and hook it up. All right, here I am. I've got the sensor installed. I'll zoom way in there. Hopefully you can see it. Oriented in the right direction. The board is in parallel with this. So now we're going to go back under the layout and connect those wires. All right, so we're back up under the layout here, and I've got you as close as I can get so that you can see what I'm doing here. Pulling up the schematic, we have 4 wires that we have to connect. We have a red, a black, a white, and a blue. The blue goes to the right side of this first triple terminal, the white here. The black can go in any one of these. The red can go into any one of these. Since this one's going to be driving only one sensor, that's all I need to worry about. I'll just mimic exactly what I'm showing here. So let's get going doing that. So here are my wires. And I'm going to make sure that they're not all tangled up in my other wires here, first and foremost, which they seem to want to do. Now the other thing I can do here, maybe, sorry, this does become a little bit of a spaghetti mess here. These wires are pretty long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap these up a little bit, like so, kind of into a little bundle here. Kind of like that, and that should make it a little easier on me. All right, so if you remember, according to the diagram, we have to do blue, white, black, and then red. These are labeled red and black, so they're pretty straightforward. So let's do, working from right to left, we'll do the blue one first. The nice thing is that these are already pre-script. So all we gotta do is find
get a screwdriver that fits your application, and then put it up in there like that. There's one. Now we'll do our white. Make sure we undo this. Sorry if my fat fingers are in the way. And we're going to put that one up into there like that. Cinch that one down. And I like to give them a little light tug just to make sure I've got them in there. All right, we're going to do the black one here. Like that. There's the black. Well, fat fingers and light sources don't exactly mix. So let's see if we can't get that in there like that. There we go. Sometimes with this really fine wire, you got to be patient, especially with yourself. And then red over here. And you'll probably notice that there is a green lit LED there. That means that I've got good power to this block. All right, give it a little tug test. Double check those just to be sure. All right, there we go. All right, let's go upstairs and test it. All right, so I've got everything hooked up. I've got power to it. The sensor is right there. I do need to double check. I think I moved the actual sensor. I did. I've got to go back and find it and rotate it back into its correct position. There we go. I was tugging on the wires apparently. So now we can see that that is, let me get you up a little bit higher here. There, now you can see the reflectiveness of the sensor a little bit. See it right there? Okay, so all right, so now let's push a couple cars over it, see what happens. Sound hole is right there. I have to say, that's pretty cool. I would call that a successful installation. All right, so time for a real drive-by. So let's bring a full train through. Switcher and about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars, including a caboose, and see how we do. Got you down at train spotter level. Had to wait for a cow to get off the tracks. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. Well, that was a success. So in addition to the one you just saw,
I also got my other ones installed, so the one right there and the one over there. So let me just show you that. The sound hole is right there, and then I'll use the flat cars on this one. Sensor's right there. Another success. All right, there you go. Well, there you have it. I have my Squealers finally installed in 3 different locations. I've got more planned for the layout. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This one took a while to put together, not only from all the different parts and pieces of trying to film it so that you got the whole gist and not just kind of like the after effects of it, but also the time it took to get that liquid tape to adhere and solidify on the sensors themselves to protect them from, you know, any moisture that I'm going to introduce from doing scenery and stuff in the future. So with that, want to say thank you to all my subscribers, the new ones that have especially come online here. We are getting so close to 1,500. I think we've got maybe 13, 12, something like that left. I haven't looked as of today. So, you know, at 1,500, I am definitely doing a celebratory contest. And also, what's coming up here on this coming week is going to be my 3-year anniversary of this channel. So we got, hopefully, maybe we get 2 things to celebrate this coming week. With that, hope you guys are enjoying your trains, and we'll see you all on down the tracks. Bye. Hey there, did you like that video? Well, check out some of these others on the screen. Don't worry, I'll wait. Enjoy.